Gators Breakdown, because there's never a dull moment in Gator Nation.
The Gators Breakdown podcast is ready to go. I'm your host, David Waters. You can find me on social media at GatorDave_SEC, coming at you with a little Kentucky preview with Sponge, Andrew Franklin, joining us right here on Gators Breakdown. We'll preview these Wildcats. He and I were talking kind of before this. Kind of just a weird team to figure out. Kentucky is, and we'll get right here into it, of course. And they're 3-5 on the season, just like Florida, and been in some close games. Maybe some games they think they should have won at the same time. So a team that's kind of weird to figure out, but dove in the last couple of days and gonna throw some preview out there for the Wildcats. So. Sponge Gators traveling to Lexington to take on Kentucky here. And like I said, you don't know what you're going to get. You got two teams, 3-5 right here in November. So nothing big to play for. Still trying to find a way to get bowl eligible. That's kind of the next goal for both of these teams right now. And 3-5 in early November, honestly, it's probably mostly about what team wants to be there.
Definitely. Yeah, like I say, the BBN, Kentucky Nation, I think they're probably disappointed in the way the season's gone. But, I don't know really what kind of expectation you really had with the roster they had. And, Stoops has kind of been one of those, guys they've talked about, being a potential big coach, to leave there to, for somebody else to hire on. But like I say, they've just been, not so good. They played tough against obviously two teams like a Ole Miss and a Texas. Probably could have won and should have won that Texas game. They've got Hugh Freeze fired last week. So, but then, they got run out of the building kind of against Georgia and Tennessee. So, like you said, it's kind of like, what team are you going to get? They usually play better at home. And then, like I say, the Gators, what's funny about this whole Florida-Kentucky rivalry, especially me, Kentucky was an afterthought every single season, and just in the last, 5 to, I guess you could say, decade, they've, gotten relevancy to where now you got to worry about them. They've been a better team, obviously, under Stoops, but, you're like, it's Kentucky, you still have that stigma of like, you shouldn't lose to Kentucky, dude. But we've struggled sometimes at home and on the road there. So, with the amount of injuries we got piled up right now, like you said, what kind of team are you going to get coming off that Georgia loss? I still think they're ready to rock and roll. So I don't think they've mailed in the season or anything like that. So it's more so.
Yeah, and my thing on that is blame Billy Napier, blame the staff for whatever you want to. But we haven't seen that from this team.
No, we haven't really seen it in any of the years.
Right. And don't get me wrong, it's a big change when you lose your head coach. And I'm sure there was a lot of belief with some of the changes that took place that against Georgia, it was going to work. And you came up short. So, how do they adjust? How do they react to that? Because it is a big change losing your head coach. Now, I still think these guys they will go out there and play hard if history is any indication. But with all this change, I don't know.
Yeah, no, for sure. Like you say, it's one of those things of you expect them to, just because it's kind of been who they are. It's kind of in their DNA. They haven't tanked it or haven't, okay, season's off the rails. Let's just, mail it in. They haven't really done that in any of the seasons the last several years under Billy. So,
correct.
And I don't think they, even with the change, I think more so you get back in the lab, that you basically didn't execute in those critical moments in winning time last week against Georgia. And, the plays were there to be had. And, you can't cry about officiating and this, that, and the other. You got to make the plays when it really comes down to making those plays. And then, you don't have to, complain about officiating this, that, and the other. So I think that, they know that they're capable, and we've seen it all year. Like that's the most frustrating part about this team is they're better than that record says they are, but they are who they are. So, and like they can win against anybody if they play an A-type game, and then they can lose against anybody if they play have a subpar performance, and then the other team kind of gets up. So, I would expect that they're better than this team, so I think they should go win this ball game. Now, will they execute and do the things they needed to do in critical moments of the game? That's why they play the game. We got to wait and see mentality because, like I said, we watched this Kentucky team. I remember that Texas game, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. I'm just like, how is Texas? What are they doing, man? This is after Texas had a couple good performances, beating Oklahoma, and you're just middling around with Kentucky.
Because I think it was it the Florida game for Texas? Then they beat Oklahoma. Then it was a week after Oklahoma, I think.
It might have been, but I was just like, I was kind of like shocked, because it was like, okay, Texas is kind of like, they've kind of figured it out, and obviously, they struggled in that ball game, and Kentucky then, got beat, by like a good Georgia team that we just saw, and then they beat Auburn, who's Auburn's been one of those weird teams too all year, so like that game was disgusting, man. What a boring game, dude. I mean, just so like I say, you're better than this team, and you're on the level of playing with some of these upper echelon teams. You just didn't do the things you needed to do to win some of those games, so.
I mean, Florida's just a team that's going to play to the competition, it looks like.
That too.
That's just what it is. Florida can play with some of the best, and Florida can play with the worst.
Totally.
And that's just what it's going to be.
And that's really been the big problem. They're so inconsistent and so unreliable when it comes to playing consistent football. Exactly. Like if you play a good game, can you stack a good game? If you have, like you say, we've always talked about the momentum of riding from one week to the next when you play well, or you carry over poor performances, back to back to back. So like again, this team's been one of the most frustrating teams at times. And, you feel, just like the season's been a total, bust. And, you're just like, now you're just kind of playing for pride to win as many games as you can. Like we said, can we play spoiler last week and upset a team like Georgia? And hell, they made it a 4-quarter ball game. And like I say, they had a couple opportunities, both offensively and defensively, to make the plays that needed to be had to maybe pull the upset, and they didn't do it, and Georgia did, and that's why they lost. So, it's what it boils down to, man.
Pretty much. So we'll give you some more preview here of Kentucky moving forward. We'll go through their schedule just a bit and key players to look out for, some changes along the season for Kentucky as well. Just to give you guys a good preview of Florida's opponent. And look, it's funny, there was a conversation we were having on Twitter today, and people were like,
I think I saw this. We'll go
ahead. The game previews, nobody's really in for these game previews anymore. Well, you know what? We only get 12. We only get guaranteed 12 of these a year.
Exactly.
I'm going to live in that world. I don't care the situation.
Yeah, we've got 7 days. We got 7 days a week to talk about coaching search and all this, and then we can squeeze in an hour of like, okay, hey, we do have a game. We're trying to win too.
I mean, I just spent a whole hour last night on just good coaching stuff. So it's there, but we still got a game Saturday, and I'm going to live in that world as much as we can, right here on Gators Breakdown. So everybody, hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't done so yet. But really hitting that thumbs up, that like button goes a long way. Helps us out right here on Gators Breakdown. Subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform as well. And, of course, if you want to keep the conversation going, the Discord is just on fire. A lot of coaching talk, of course, right there. GatorsBreakdownPlus.com gets you access to that Discord. We have those chats on the Discord on Sunday evenings. You get ad-free episodes of Gators Breakdown, early access to some of the episodes as well. But, the big pull right now, the Discord, keeping that conversation going, and the ad-free episodes. Starting at $3 a month, GatorsBreakdownPlus.com. And then, of course, hey, it's been a hot seller. The Move Back You Suck shirt link is in the description right there. You can get that. It's just been, man, just kind of, I would say flying off shelves, but, we don't really deal with shelves here. It's all online. So it's just, being shipped to you right there. Move Back You Suck shirt. Link is in the description. All that good stuff right there. Getting you more, even Gators Breakdown love. And before we move forward, well, it's time to go bet. We got a couple days before Saturday. Florida's a 3-point favorite at Kentucky on the road. We know the road struggles Florida has had, but Florida's still a 3-point favorite. Over-unders currently sits at 44.5. You can go bet it at MyBookie. Get in on all the action there. Georgia favored by 9 at Mississippi State. Indiana favored by 14.5 against Penn State. Texas A&M 7-point favorites over Missouri. Bama favored by 10 over LSU. Go bet all the college football you want, and then go play some casino games. One account, one wallet right there at MyBookie. Bet football all weekend, then spend some time hitting the slots, jump into those casino games there. No switching apps. You don't have to jump to another platform. All the action right there at MyBookie. And, of course, even more NFL action with the game lines and the player props and more. Super contests, survivor pools. Go bet it all at MyBookie. If you're new to MyBookie, use our code Gators. Get your first bet up to $500. It's fully covered. Make your play. If it doesn't hit, you get it right back with the bet back bonus. So sign up at mybookie.ag with promo code Gators and claim your bet back bonus. All right, Sponge, let's get to it, man. And, for this Kentucky team, let's just we'll go through their schedule a bit. So far this year, they're 3-5. Like I said, opened up the season. Well, what many people were thinking was a dangerous game for them. Toledo, 24-16 win over Toledo. Then the 30-23 win over Ole Miss, losing by a touchdown. Beat Ole Miss last year, only losing by a touchdown to Ole Miss this year. Then 48-23 over Eastern Michigan. 35-13 loss to South Carolina. It was a turnover fest there. South Carolina taking advantage. 35-14 loss to Georgia. 16-13 loss in overtime to Texas. A 56-34 loss to Tennessee. They have 4 straight losses, all in the SEC, till they got a 10-3 slobber knocker win last week against Auburn on the Plains, getting Hugh Freeze fired, of course. So it gets them to 3-5. It is their one conference win so far this year, and that win over Auburn last week. So, certainly, 4 straight losses. They've played good in some of those losses, as we said. The Texas coulda, shoulda, woulda overtime loss there against them. Put up 34 points. Tennessee put up 56 as well. So, but Kentucky being able to put up 34 points. Some people probably didn't think they could do that, no matter the circumstances. How many offensive possessions you get when your opponent puts up 56 points. But then it was a complete opposite the next week, like we said, with a 10-3 loss against Auburn. So, it's you go to it, put that together. I'm sure there's some confidence for Kentucky coming into this game after getting a win over Auburn last week. They've won their last 2 contests against the Gators at Kroger Field, so playing better at home. And Florida has not played a November game in Lexington since 1991. So, been a while. Usually you play them in September, earlier in the season. But suppose there we go. That's their season so far. We kind of chronicled it. Let's go back, though. Before we just kind of dive into it, go back to last year. It was kind of the coming out party for DJ Lagway. 48-20 win for the Gators. DJ Lagway, 7 of 14 for 259 yards, 18.5 yards per reception there. No touchdowns in that, by the way. 1 interception because Jaden Ball had 5 touchdowns.
He had all the TDs that night.
22 carries, 106 yards. It was somebody like Elijah Badger. He had 3 catches for 148 yards, getting tackled at the 1-yard line. Jaden Ball is the benefactor of the ball, or the player getting tackled at the 1-yard line. Chimere Dike had 2 for 67. Trey Wilson 1 for 40. So, go back a year ago, it was kind of the coming out party for DJ Lagway in his first SEC start, of course, because this was after Kentucky, or after Tennessee, after the Tennessee game when Graham Mertz got hurt. And this was DJ Lagway's first start in the SEC for an SEC opponent there in the Swamp. So, taking kind of into account what we've seen from Kentucky so far this year, and then what happened last year, some of this is, hey man, what can DJ Lagway do?
Yeah, no, that's what we, his numbers were so weird that night, because it was, he had a couple of those big, huge plays. I mean, you complete 7 balls for 259. You're like, those are huge explosive plays, obviously. And then, like you said, you had, Ball just been the benefactor of having some short touchdown runs and some big runs. Yeah, that was kind of like the game where you're like, okay, DJ's the quarterback going forward. What is this going to look like? I remember going into that game, it was like a little bit of like, all right, because Kentucky was kind of, that one of those teams that's always a scrappy team. And yeah, it was kind of like the big coming out party. They had that huge second quarter, scored 24 points. They were up big, and then they gave up that kickoff return, I think it was, for like 100 yards to Barry and Brown, that made it, okay, it's a two-score game again. But then they kind of flexed, obviously, in the second half, and, kind of Kamani had a pick six late in that game, and they kind of ran away with it. So you're like, okay. Then that kind of sprungboard forward to be like, okay, DJ's the quarterback. This is what we got going, forward. Then what do we have? The bye week and then Georgia, and then the rest is history. So, yeah, that was kind of the game that was like, DJ's the guy. And then, you had the injury and then the rest of the season. And then we had all of offseason where we're thinking DJ Lagway is going to be this, stud quarterback for us. And it's obviously gone to show that he's definitely needed some offseason work, definitely needed all the reps he could get, definitely needed the practice time, all that. It's hard to in-game adjust and in-game prepare and get brought up to speed and all that stuff. Everybody's –
while you're on that point, I don't mean to interrupt you here.
Yeah, I know.
But it is a perfect time for this question. So I remember I asked for some questions for episodes this week. So let's keep it there before we move away from Lagway.
All right.
Brian sent in, do we feel Lagway's issues are still health related or scheme? Can Sturdivant build the roles of the receivers that are hurt? So we'll keep it, injuries the theme there, of course.
Yeah, I feel like, sure. We don't know what DJ's health has been all season. And obviously.
And I think we even said before the season.
Yeah.
We're coming into the season. There's no way he's 100%. Now, we didn't think we would probably need 100%. Turns out we probably do. But
for sure.
We come into the season knowing he probably wasn't 100%.
Yeah, and I think, too, we put so much onus and pressure on some of these young kids, whether it be quarterback, the expectation level is so high when you get a 5-star quarterback or a 5-star player at some position that you just expect them to come in and just be an ace. And sometimes that doesn't pan out a lot of times, really. And especially when you don't have that preparation and all that stuff. So then you counter that too with a nagging injury here or a nagging injury there, or like, that maybe that calf injury that occurred literally, a couple weeks before camp, kind of carried over into whatever it is. And then you're always behind the 8 ball once the season's going. Once that train's going, you can't stop it. Like you say, you get a bye week for, whatever. But again, sure, I think definitely injury has been a major key part of he hasn't been right all year. But also, I think everybody's a quarterback coach online, apparently, too. They look at mechanics and, this, that, and the other. And, Trammell, just look how great Trammell looks on his drop. Like, we're talking about a freaking warm-up throw, guys. Come on, relax. Like, sure, in game, DJ does a lot of stuff that he, in my opinion, that is the new era, new age of these quarterbacks who can think they can throw off platform, think they can make every throw. They want to look smooth and sweet doing it. And, when you should just do your mechanical stuff that you're trained and taught year in and year out. If he sets his feet on that last throw and doesn't throw it the way he does, maybe Sturdivant catches it clean and we're talking about a totally different ballgame. But guess what? That's not what happened. And there's a lot of times in game where he does mechanically make crappy, his footwork is crappy. His arm motion sometimes is a little lazy, all that stuff. But don't talk about a freaking warm-up throw, guys. Let's not go there. Let's put Trammell in. He's ready to go. So it's just one of those.
Funny. It's funny when people will slam the staff for not having DJ ready or not having Mertz ready or having AR ready, but for whatever reason, Trammell is different.
Trammell is different, man.
Apparently, he's ready to go when none of these other guys have been.
Did you watch him against Long Island? He's ready to go, man.
Yeah.
So it's again,
and that's not a shot at Trammell.
No, I love Trammell. He's one of my guys. He's a Duval guy. So like but
I'm just saying, if we're going to
expect a true freshman to come in and be better, like don't get me wrong. Like, of course, a lot of times you want to see it just because you got that figment in your imagination and like it's better, But again, for as much as coaches get slammed and stuff, a lot of times it's like, man, they see what is going on in practice. They know, like, they're not just going to play DJ in spite. Like if Trammell was making some ridiculous throws and they had some, real thought process that this guy can make some things happen, they would put him in. Like don't get me wrong, some coaches do have a big ego and they think they're smarter than everybody, and like they're just going to play this guy. I remember going back to Dan Mullen with the whole like AR and Emory Jones and this, that, and the other. It's just like he's not ready, and yada yada yada. It's like we don't care, we just want to see it. And then what was it? AR's first game, they throw him to the Wolves against Georgia. It's like but again, I think injury is a part of it, but I think also not having those reps and then just having bad, footwork is a counterpoint to a lot of his stuff too. So it's like, can a good offseason improve some of that stuff? Does he need different coaching? Sure, why not? That's a part of it. Like if we feel like if we get a new guy in here, a different voice, another offensive-minded guy like a Lane Kiffin, like a Lincoln Riley, some of these big names that are getting swirled around, could they come in and change DJ's game and take it to another level? I mean, that's what we're hoping for. That's what we want to see.
Yeah, Junior puts thanks for the donation, Junior, with the comment here. Need to put it on the Cats this weekend. Hopefully we get it going in the run game, make it easier for DJ. Yeah, hopefully so. Hopefully so. I mean, saw what last year, and it was the pass and the run. And with Jaden Ball, I mean, we just like to get the ball in his hands. It's just really,
for sure. I thought we were able to run it fairly decently even last week against Georgia.
Yeah.
We knew we weren't just going to run it all over Georgia.
Yeah.
And part of that problem too is the fact of, like I say, we've got a lot of depth issues too with our backs. It's literally all on Jaden Ball. So like, Georgia is definitely one of those tough teams to run on, and they didn't light the world on fire with it, but they ran it for 100. You flip it to Georgia, they contained Georgia's run game for the most part, except for that last kind of Chauncey Bowen's busted run there. They would have been close to 100 yards as well. So I think they can run the ball, and if you want to definitely help DJ out with a lot of these injuries at receiver, hopefully that we can get VB3 back and Mizell back in there, and Sturdivant can kind of step up into that bigger role. It's going to hurt not having Trey out there after he had the big game he had, and obviously Dallas out for the year. So like, these other guys, they got to get back in the rotation, get going again. Yeah, like I said, can we get some of these other guys like TJ Abrams, Tank Hawkins? Can we get something from these guys? We have to get some kind of something from those dudes, So, but yeah, if we can run the ball, definitely you're going to help out DJ.
And with that, I mean, Kentucky's coming off their first league win of the season, of course, and that 10-3 win last week. 12 tackles for loss, 7 quarterback sacks, 1 interception, 4 pass breakups, 9 quarterback hurries. So that's what they were able to do last week. And look, we know one big reason Hugh Freeze was fired is because that offense at Auburn was bad. So, but hey, credit to Kentucky for taking advantage, because you know what? This Florida offense in a lot of metrics isn't good either.
Right.
We come here week after week and talk about potential, and hey, this guy's open, that guy's open, they just got to hit him. Well, that's part of the problem. It hasn't been there. The consistency hasn't been there. So it just lets you know Kentucky is capable. If Florida's not ready to play, if Florida's not doing their thing on offense, Kentucky's defense is capable. They have been, under Mark Stoops. Now, you took advantage of them last year. Mm-hmm. And that's what Florida did. And, hopefully you can sit here and do it again. I'm sure there's some confidence on the Florida side. Look, each year is different. I'll fully admit that. But I'm sure there's some confidence because of what you were able to do last year that you can kind of bleed it over into this year and for this offense. So let's take a look at some key players for Kentucky here. Here we come, coming into week 11. Senior linebacker Alex Safari Jr. leads the team and is 16th in the league in total tackles. He's got 6 tackles per game. He's had a trio of 10 tackle games in his last 9 games, a stretch that dates back to last season. He turned into performance last week against Auburn, tying career highs with 2.5 tackles for loss, 1.5 quarterback sack, 3 quarterback hurries, and a pass breakup. He totaled 6 tackles last week, so he's coming in off of a hot game. Steven Souls Jr., sophomore linebacker, he leads the team with 3.5 sacks, which also ranks tied for 10th in the SEC in sacks per game. Have to dig a little bit deeper, though. 2 of those were against Toledo, right. The first game of the season. He collected his 3rd sack of the season against Texas. and then a half sack last week against Auburn. And then DB's top.
What's crazy, he only has 8 total tackles on the year too. So it's like,
yeah,
he just had those big sacks early, and then it's kind of just been MIA.
Yep, lead the team in sacks, but you want to go through and look. Hey, who's the guy to look for? Who's the guy to look for? But
totally
did dig in deeper too. It's like, well, two of them were Toledo, and then just kind of some in the last couple of weeks, and then DB's Ty Bryant, Jordan Lovett, each has 2 interceptions, and Steven Souls, go back to him. He's caused 2 fumbles this year, tied for 3rd and 5th in the SEC, respectively, in those categories. And there's some odds and ends for the Kentucky defense. The Kentucky defense has intercepted the ball on the opponent's first possession in 2 games this year. And then in 5 of 8 games this season, Kentucky has allowed less than 20 yards of offense on the opponent's opening drives. So they're getting off to some good starts on defense. And Billy Gonzalez has kind of harped on it all week of getting off to a fast start. Kentucky hasn't really allowed it this year. And if Florida finds themselves in desperate situations and Florida needs to be going forward on 4th down, the Wildcats have forced 11 turnovers on down this season. That's tied for 2nd in the SEC. So there's just some odd and ends. Well, look, we'll just go back to it. For DJ Lagway, big plays last year. And you would have to think ready to play well again if the opportunity is there. Can Florida repeat, kind of going to your point earlier, can Florida repeat getting receivers open down the field that we saw last week? In this quote-unquote new look offense, there were some plays there to be made.
Yeah.
Plays down the seam. That's what hurt Kentucky last year. Plays just down the seam. Florida's offensive line going to have to protect. Kentucky can rush the passer. They're pretty good at creating havoc. But so the Florida offensive line got to protect a lot like they did last week. I thought DJ had a clean pocket for most of the time. Repeat that again. But, for just find a way. Find a way to give DJ some time. See if he can replicate what he did last year. This might could be a confidence boost, confident builder for him. But, the defensive coordinator, Brad White at Kentucky, likes to stay in that zone defense. Lot of zone defense here. So for Lagway, it's, to me, the confidence is playing that zone defense. You're going to have to be accurate. You're going to have to throw it in some windows. And hopefully the confidence comes from that.
Yeah, no, and like I say, Stoops, Stoops is going to have, like, his calling card is going to be, they're going to have a good defense. Kentucky's always going to be scrappy on defense. They're always going to be able to kind of cause pressure, get after the quarterback. That's kind of just what they kind of do. Their biggest thing going into this season for me has been their offense has been pretty bad, and we'll get on their offense here in a second. But going back to like what you're giving all the good nuggets about Kentucky's defense, and like you say, they're doing a good job of creating a couple turnovers, and then early in down situation in game, that first drive, you got your script. They're kind of doing a good job against most teams' first drive, which is always you always want to come out and establish something on your first drive of the game, offensively. So yeah, concerning part of DJ's game has been when you start dropping guys into coverage, he's throwing it to the wrong color jersey. And those are things that he's going to have cleaned up. He's going to have to read the right coverage and then hit those open holes, hit those shots. But I do like the way that the offense even looked in a 1-game experiment.
Yeah.
So far after last week, it just looked cleaner. The operation looked like it was some more. I mean, like I say, holy cow, Trey Wilson can catch a ball beyond the line of scrimmage, So, so it's like it sucks that like he's out, because that you want to have something built off of that, but that in a sense gives another player that we need to step up another opportunity to do something themselves. So, yeah, DJ's gonna.
And over that note, pretty positive information as far as Vernell Brown III's availability.
Yeah, well,
we'll
good.
see Saturday. Yeah, I think it's probably going to be questionable up until that point.
Yeah.
But I think trending in a good direction. Aiden Mizell, not really sure. Right. But if Trey Wilson's out, BB3 is the guy you definitely want to
100% because they're kind of interchangeable. They've kind of you've seen that interchangeable style of who those guys are at receiver. They're, the shifty, smaller, find the open hole, get upfield, make things happen. type guys. They're kind of, similar dudes. So if you don't have Trey, you need VB3 back in the lineup. So it's good news that if he's trending in the right direction to play Saturday, it's going to be huge. But yeah, like, again, the key thing to all this stuff is if you're able to establish the run, and get, positive. We talked about it last week with Georgia. What was Georgia's calling card that they do a really good job of? Staying on the field, sustaining drives, making second and third down manageable and not being in, longer situations on third down.
And it didn't even play out that way.
It did. It really didn't, and like, I think they did. I think they executed it a couple times where I was like, well, here's Gunnar Stockton picking up that, 6 yards on second down to make it a 3rd and 2, to make it a short run. But yeah, it didn't even really come into a factor. Defensively, you played pretty well. But yeah, so it's like if the Gators can establish a run, we've said all season that's been kind of the one thing that you want to always go back and lean on, because we thought that this offensive line was going to be as good as it is. We've seen Jaden Ball is spectacular when you give him the room to run, and when you actually give him the football more than 12, 13 times a game, that he can make something happen. So when you can have that balance to keep a defense off kilter, to where they're trying to key in on one thing to say, okay, we want to put pressure on DJ. We want to do this. Well, if you're running the football, then all that goes out the window anyway. So then that can open up some of that stuff. So if they're able to run the football, I think they can be all right. But that's going to be key and first and foremost, number one thing. And like you say, we need some of these other receivers to come in and step up and make some plays down the field.
Yeah, it's going to be the key, for Florida. DJ, I think DJ's confidence in it being there early, and I think that kind of just bleeds over into the receivers as well. So, the big concern there, it might be cold. Florida on the road hasn't necessarily been the greatest in the last few years.
You go back
either.
to what their last, their last road start was the A&M game.
Yeah.
And they played fairly well in that game early, so, again, that was against the top 5 team. A lot of teams, people think that A&M is going to be in the playoff. They think they're going to be an SEC championship game, all that. So it's like, again, it goes to show, like, you've played in these games, so it's about executing. And here's the thing: we didn't make the adjustments where A&M did in that game, and you got beat. So you hopefully carry over the momentum from like A&M. You played well in spots against Mississippi State. You played well in spots last week. So again, there was some spots where he didn't make a good read or make like, dude. One thing I will love we need to call Billy G and tell him, let's not run RPO. East-West with DJ. Just give me quarterback blast and trap the rest of the year. I don't go forward, just blast up the middle. Do not try to get sidelined. And it's funny on that 3rd and 2 or whatever it was late in that game.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, let's run blast here. Let's do it. And what did he do? He tried to get sideways.
Try to take it outside.
You're too slow, bro. You're too slow right now. I don't know what you got going on. Cement boots and running in molasses, but you just got to hit it and just get north and south. And so that can be a part of the game too. Like we talked about, we want to see some of DJ's run, but the RPO stuff is not working at all, man. It's because it's when he keeps it that the defenses want him to keep it, because he's very, very ineffective at all getting to the outside on that run game. So I don't know if you got RPO game to RPO throw, but
that's what it mostly was until last week.
Yeah, his read option run is not.
I really think they were trying to catch Georgia off guard with it.
Yeah,
Georgia hadn't really game planned for it. Florida hasn't done it much this year up to that point, and I just think some of those were all right. Before this, I've never kept it, so I'm gonna keep it.
Right.
And probably I think even instructed in sometimes just to do that because even before that point, he
just to give a look.
Yeah. But it sure not. I mean, Georgia responded well. It didn't matter if they hadn't seen it on tape all season.
Yeah, those guys were flying. Those guys were flying, man. Yeah. So Kentucky's going to do the same thing. So like I said, just if you're going to run DJ, I just run straight blast, man. Just get forward, north and south, pick up your 3 to 4 yards, and call it a day.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. So keys to the game there. we always will say got to run the ball. But for what we've seen this year and how it's played out so far, to me, and even just trying to use last year's game somewhat, I hate to do that a whole lot, but it was a coming out party. There's maybe some confidence. Maybe DJ hasn't had, this season that say, okay, well, this is a defense I like playing against. If they're going to continue to play me that way. Now, of course, if he can hit the throws, I mean, those plays might be there. They might be there again.
Yeah.
But it don't matter if he can't hit them. So that's the key to the game to me. I don't think Florida's just going to be able to pound on Kentucky.
Right.
I think I think you can have some success in the run game, and it still might get you a win. But I still wouldn't see it being because Ball went for 25 and 125, 130. I mean, if that happens, great. but I just don't see it. I don't see it. I don't see, especially Brad White, Mark Stoops together, pretty good defensive combo. They're going to make Lagway beat them. How I see it playing out.
I almost think every team needs to say, DJ Lagway, you got to make throws. Yeah. And if you do, I'll tip my cap to you.
Yeah, and Florida did a good job last week of keeping Georgia off balance. I mean, like I said, it wasn't a great philosophical change in the offense. There were some wrinkles.
Yeah.
But it was nowhere near as predictable. Nowhere near as predictable. So keep that in your back pocket as well. So
yeah, I was just cycling through some of the box scores from their previous games. And Georgia had the most successful run on them for 180.
Tennessee you see right here are the stats I got. Their EPA per rush. Their expected point added per rush. They're 34th in the country.
Yeah, Tennessee didn't run on them. Texas didn't run it on them. No. South Carolina really didn't run. Well, actually, South Carolina Sellers had a big game on the ground, but for the most part, the running backs
run game. Yeah,
exactly. So that's one thing about. Like I said, we said before, Stoops is going to have the defense ready to go. It's just Kentucky's been kind of challenged offensively all year, so it's kind of put their defense in tough spots. So
yeah, they are 38th in defensive success rate against the rush. So, I mean, there you go. I mean, probably going to be pretty clear in what they're going to do to try and stop the Florida offense. So
yeah.
All right, let's go for the other side of the ball. And we got to get into Cutter Boley a little bit. The redshirt freshman quarterback there at Kentucky. He's gotten more comfortable. The coaching staff has gotten more comfortable with him as well. They've passed the ball a little bit more. Kentucky has in recent weeks. Kind of had to keep up with Tennessee. Kind of just the story of the game a bit. But, they've started passing the ball a little bit more. The offensive line, solid at Kentucky once again. Very experienced there. Now they have some wide receivers that are starting to emerge as well. But we go to Cutter Boley, the redshirt freshman quarterback, a spark in the offensive late in his last 3 games. That's against Texas, against Tennessee, and against Auburn. He has completed 75 of 103 pass attempts for 749 yards and 6 touchdowns. He's also added a rushing score. He's been the starting quarterback since the Eastern Michigan game, September 20th. In 7 games for the season, in 6 starts, he has completed 123 of 187 passes, 1,376 yards, 10 touchdowns through the air. So this young signal caller sponge, he is 6th in the SEC and 43rd in the country with completion percentage of 65.8. Now, he's raised it up a bit, 72% in the last 3 games against Texas, Tennessee, and Auburn. So he's shown up. He's shown up lately. Some more notes on him against Texas on non-sack plays. So we're going to have to watch out for now. Non-sack plays. He ran 11 times for 69 yards against Texas. So can make some plays with his legs too. That's where he had the rushing touchdowns against Texas. In that same game, his 31 completions against Texas are the most for a Kentucky freshman quarterback since Jared Lorenzen in 2000.
The hefty lefty.
The hefty lefty. Against Tennessee, his 5 touchdown passes are a Kentucky freshman record. The previous record was 3 by Morgan Newton in 2009 and Jared Lorenzen in 2000. And his 5 touchdown passes are also the most since Andre Woodson threw for 6 against Tennessee in 2007. So lately, they found themselves a quarterback a little bit here. I mean, Will Levis was, the most thought about. And some of these are freshman numbers here that he's setting. But putting himself up there with Lorenzen and Will Levis's name, is Boley. So his 330 passing yards are the most for a Kentucky freshman since Jared Lorenzen threw for 385 against Vanderbilt in 2000. So, like I said, just putting his name in the freshman record books there at Kentucky. So, he's not going to blow you away, but he is a good quarterback. And
he's
especially
big. He's big too, man. Big ass kid, man.
Yeah. His success rate comes in ranked as 26 in the country, by the way. So other quarterbacks in that range, Haynes King, Carson Beck. For comparison, Cutter Boley, 26 in the country in success rate. DJ Lagway is 103rd.
Yeah, that's
we've seen our quarterback play every game this year.
Yeah.
So now there's your comparison of how Boley has played this year. Now, has it all been roses? He's thrown 7 interceptions in his last 5 games.
Yeah,
and
he's going to throw. He's going to throw
against
one
last week against Auburn. Yeah. So you're pretty good. I mean, wasn't the starter for the season? Who was that?
Zach Calzada.
Calzada.
Yeah,
he was the starter. That didn't last long. Credit Kentucky for making the move here, and as the season has progressed, now look, only 10-3 against last week versus Auburn. So it hasn't all been, relating itself.
Sometimes you put
points.
up. Sometimes you put up good stats, and you're able to move the ball up and down the field a little bit, but you got to get in the end zone still. And Auburn has played good defense all season. Obviously, they were able to score, 34 points against Tennessee. The Texas game was kind of a defensive struggle, slugfest type game. And then they really didn't score against Georgia or South Carolina.
Right.
2 touchdowns basically in a sense, or 2 scores. You can't go back all the way to Toledo and Eastern Michigan, like I said. But Boley has been playing good as of late. They just haven't played good complementary ball. Defense gave up a ton against Tennessee.
Yeah.
They scored. They were able to move the ball, there to where they needed to. They didn't come up big when they needed to in that Texas game where they had a shot to win. And then they just did enough last week against Auburn. I will say I do like this kid, and I'm glad they made the move to him because Zach Calzada has been a journeyman, whatever, by the way type of guy. So go ahead and get your reps, get your lumps, take your lumps with this kid, let him get in there and play. Obviously, you just said the type of numbers that he's putting up, to get in the Kentucky record book as a freshman. Like I say, he's 6'5", he's a big kid, man. So you got to get after him. And I didn't know that was a sneaky stat you threw out there with the rushing against Texas. You know what I'm saying? Because anytime you have that nagging quarterback who just gets out of there, picks up big yards, kind of has some explosive runs, 70 yards is a lot of running for your quarterback. That's a good those key things that go back into that Texas game is why they probably were able to kind of hang around. They were able to extend some drives, make some plays down the field with his legs. So that's definitely a thing. Our defense has got to be on the lookout for. Hey, we got to sack this guy, but he also can get out because he's capable. So it's the big thing for me is they've lost all their explosive guys. They transferred out of there, man. They got Kendrick Law, the transfer in from Bama, but losing Brown and Dane Key and those guys, those were 2 receivers that if they would have stayed, they would have probably made this offense a little more explosive and dangerous, but that's the NIL world we live in to where their best players, they're going to get up out of there.
Yeah, so for the Kentucky offense here, I want to bring in Casual Carolina Fishing's comment right here. He said Florida's averaging 13.5 points a game away from the Swamp. So what has Kentucky put up this year at home? Well, only 24 against Toledo. 23 against Ole Miss. So that would be enough to beat, Florida only putting up 13.5 points. Mm-hmm. Eastern Michigan doesn't care. I don't care. Yeah. But it was at South Carolina when they only put up 13. At Georgia when they only put up 14. Now they did put up 13 against Texas.
Yeah.
And that was in overtime. And then at home did score 34 against Tennessee. So you don't really know. It's been all over the place. I mean,
it's kind of been that's been, like we say, you said it at the very outset of this pod, is like this is a weird team to break down, because you see flashes of like where, okay, they've played in games, they've played pretty, like you say, go back all the way to week 2.
Just nothing consistent.
It's so hard to go all the way back. Like, again, and this is the crazy part about college football. You go back all the way to week 2 and you're like, man, they played a tough game against Ole Miss, who right now is considered one of the best teams in the country, and they took them to the wire. And that's a team that they knocked off last year to kind of put Ole Miss, put the black eye on Ole Miss's face, besides the Gator upset. Like everybody's talking about, Ole Miss being a playoff team last year. Well, guess what? You lost to Kentucky and Florida, 2 teams you had no business losing to. And so, Kentucky's capable of playing a game like that. Again, this is how perception of college football is. If somehow they pull out that win and don't lose to Texas, how is this breakdown? We're like, shoot, Kentucky definitely can beat us. Like, again, we said it before. The Gators should win this ball game because I think they're constructed better. But should and could and will is a whole lot of different stuff. So you still got to go play the game, and like that's the thing. The Gators are capable of winning and losing this game all at the same time. So it's a myriad of, like, you don't know what you're going to get until you get out there and kick it off on Saturday night.
For sure. Hey, look, you mentioned Kendrick Law there. He's almost doubling the amount of receptions of the next player with a team high 30 catches for a team high 351 yards. He's got 3 touchdowns. Going into this week, he's had a touchdown reception in 3 of his last 4 games, including his last 2 straight. So marking the first time in his career with a touchdown reception in consecutive games. So he's on a little hot streak right now. That means he had the only touchdown last week, by the way, right, when they played Auburn. So, but a couple of freshmen are starting to show up too for Kentucky as the season goes along. DJ Miller played in his first game against Texas on October 18th. He caught 2 passes for 13 yards. Then he followed that up with a record night against Tennessee. He had 5 catches on all 5 of his targets, and a team best career best, of course, for him, 120 yards and 2 touchdowns. And a career-long 56-yard touchdown reception in the second quarter, the first of his collegiate career, followed by a 28-yarder in the third quarter. He tied the school record with 7 others for most touchdown pass receptions by a freshman in a game with 2, becoming the first since Dane Key and Barian Brown both did so in 2022. And then Cam Miller, another Miller, played his first game against Georgia. And while he only played the fourth quarter of that game, he finished with 3 catches, a total of 41 yards, and then earned a start the very next game against Texas, and then again the next game against Tennessee. So they're starting to turn to some freshmen as well. So a young offense at the skill spot at quarterback, at receiver, is what you're looking at with Kentucky. Then running backs Dante Dowdle, Seth McGowan, going into this game as well, despite playing limited snaps or no snaps the last couple of games, McGowan still ranks 4th in the SEC in touchdown rush with 7, 7th in the SEC in rushing yards per game with 75.6, and 11th in the SEC in yards rushing per carry with 4.64. And then the offensive line, what Kentucky's just kind of always been known for, took a big step back last year. But one of the most experienced offensive lines this coming into the year, 166 career starts between their offensive line. That ranked 3rd in FBS. Well, that lineup has started all 7 games this season. So they were already 3rd in overall experience. They've started every game so far this season. And Sponge leading that group, one of the people in that group, a familiar name, somehow still playing college football. That is one Josh Braun, former Gator.
Yeah, Razorback.
Former Gator. He was 3rd team all preseason SEC. He's played in 58 career games, 8 at Kentucky, 26 at Florida, 24 at Arkansas, 40 career starts. So coming into this game, ranks 23rd among FBS players in career games played.
The wily veteran, baby.
So there's a familiar name for everybody. Oh, Josh Braun, one of the better offensive recruits that Dan Mullen brought in. I mean, that's how long ago it's been. He was a Dan Mullen recruit, by the way. So there you go. That's just kind of nuts to think about Josh Braun playing for Kentucky still. So looking at this matchup, nobody really stands out at wide receiver for Kentucky. So for me, for Florida, man up their receivers and play to stop the run. I mean, they've played better in the passing game. I still think you make the quarterback beat you. I mean, if Kentucky has beaten Florida, it's not because they're hitting bomb after bomb after bomb. They'll hit one explosive play that'll be the difference in the game, and then just lean on the ground game, ground and pound Florida till they, basically submit and they win the game. There's really no need to bring pressure in this game. Play to run, stop the run, take your chances there. To me, this game is just about winning your matchup. If you're one-on-one on the outside, win your matchup. If you're up front, go beat this experienced offensive line. That's the name of the game to me. This Kentucky offense is average on a good day.
Yeah.
They're not a very explosive team. They're okay on the ground. They're methodical. They're not really explosive on the ground. They average about 3rd and 7 on the season, so Florida needs to keep them there. They rank 59th in the country in converting third downs, converting about 41%. So to me, it's just man up and go beat your man. That's all that is for me on defense.
Yeah, no, I agree. If I was going to do a comparison point to a team like, I guess, scrappiness versus how they play, take it back to the Mississippi State game. Mississippi State struggled winning games, but I was way more fearful of their offense and their explosivity, with the receivers. Blake Shapen had been playing really well. Booth had been good on the ground, and like I say, for the most part, the Gators did a good job of containing them, bend but don't break style. They let them get some yards, but held Mississippi State to the 21 points in that ball game. The explosion of Kentucky's offense, I don't see it. Like you say, man up. Like Kendrick Law can't beat you. You know what I'm saying? And none of their guys on the ground, should run it all over us or anything like that, because we've done a pretty good job against the run all season. So I think, like you said, play D. Win your one-on-one matchups. You don't have to we will bring pressure just because Roberts is doing that, which is good. So bring a little pressure, heat up Cutter Boley a little bit. Stop the run game, like I say. And I'm not in fear of any one of their wide receivers of going downfield like those Mississippi State guys, or future matchups against Ole Miss and Tennessee, or when we played Texas A&M with those explosive receivers.
For Roberts, and it's still will be met at sim pressure. He's not he's not bringing crazy numbers.
Totally. His simulated pressures are really good. Doing a lot of the different zone blitz style stuff, and so I think. He'll keep doing that stuff, but I don't think they're going to be able to just line up and run the ball on us. And then, I just don't see.
To me, that's how they win the game.
Yeah,
it's just I as good as Boley has played, for what we've seen from if the defense plays their standard game.
Yeah,
to me, it's still going to have to be Kentucky just running the ball in Florida.
Totally. Yeah, and I don't necessarily see that happening either. So like I said, Florida's the better team in this game. They should go. But again, they don't play well on the road. Maybe it's a new. I hate this team on the road, but at least this isn't a top 25 team that we're playing against. Yeah. So we got to win some big game. You're better than Kentucky. You know what I'm saying? And so go play like it and do the things you're capable of doing, and just go execute and do it. You know what I'm saying? That's just bottom line. It's just bottom line business. You're better than this team. Go do what you're supposed to go do and go win the game on the road. Get you a road win, and then move on to next week.
Yeah, I mean it's it's hard. It's hard to pick this team to go win on the road.
Yeah,
I mean it just is. But I'm going to live in the world that I've lived in for as long as I have been able to.
A homer.
Yeah, no. You kind of picked it. Yeah, I know where you're going with that. That was funny. But I do go homer when I don't really know the answer to things.
Right.
This is close to pretty 50-50 to me. So my rule, if it's close to 50-50, I'm Homer, orange and blue glasses. So I'm rolling with Florida. But it's tough. I got Florida 24-20. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be an ugly game. I don't see I got to see Lagway get confident before I can say it's there. I got to see Lagway consistently throw the ball before I can say he replicates what we saw last year. So it's taken a lot to get there. So I think it's going to be this low scoring affair that we.
Yeah, I'm with you. I had 27-20 is what I had.
Okay.
So we're right on par there.
CFB graphs, they go by a lot of the nerd stats as well, as far as like EPA, success rate, all that kind of stuff. Here's their score prediction.
Okay.
22.6 to 22.1.
so 23-21, 23-22, 22-21.
23-21. I mean, that's what they have here. So that's how close they see this game. Florida on the road. And I mean, you see all the red when Florida's offense is against Kentucky's defense right here. I mean, so it's they don't see a whole lot of positive matchup here, but it's kind of the same way. There's a lot of red on the Kentucky offense versus the Florida defense. So it's that's what you're getting here. It's what you're getting here.
No, like I say, it's one of those things of you feel like we're the better team, and like you said, if it's this type of close game, we'll stick with the homer pick. I mean, I saw the tweet out there that says we're going to win the rest of our. Like, come on, man! Like we're going to break down these games, but we're not.
Yeah, I said we can win.
Exactly. Exactly. Sure, we can. Like we've said this one, we can beat Kentucky, and we can lose to them as well too.
Speaking of that, we'll end it right here. I did throw a tweet out there today. So let's get Gator Nation's thoughts on that. So I had 24-20 Florida. You had 27-20 Florida.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. So kind of close there. But I threw a poll out today, because I was on that little theme of.
Yeah. I saw your poll.
Yeah.
So I voted.
Okay. There we go. Let's get the results of that one, and then we'll end the episode here. Let's see. About 470 votes so far. Let me pull it up here. There we go. So I did ask the question, what would Florida's record be for the rest of the year? At Kentucky, at Ole Miss, versus Tennessee, versus FSU. What will Florida's record for the rest of the season will be? Sponge, there's the results.
Yep.
Almost half go 2-2. I would assume that means beating Kentucky, lose to Ole Miss and Tennessee, and beat Florida State. I assume that's the way most people go there. So that's half
if you were to vote, what's your selection?
Ooh. Caught me off guard there.
Putting you on the spot there, buddy.
It's funny. I hadn't really thought about it. I put it up there. I hadn't really thought about it. I'd go 2-2.
That's what I picked too.
And basically just the way I explained it.
Exactly. 100%.
Think you get the one at Kentucky. Think you lose to Ole Miss. I hate losing to Tennessee. It hasn't been done forever.
I know.
But
that's the non-homer pick. Good job, Dave. Good job. That's the non-homer pick. Because guess what? We'll break down Tennessee in a couple of weeks, and we'll pick the Gators to beat Tennessee. Don't worry, guys.
I just think it'll look like a lot like the Kentucky-Tennessee game.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
I think Tennessee will put up points. Yeah. Now, here's the thing about that too. My bad. If I'm still here.
No,
Florida's defense besides year one under Napier has done a damn good job at limiting the Tennessee offense. And you do get them at home. So that's been there. That's been there. So Joey Aguilar coming to the Swamp, what does that look like?
That's gonna be a good crowd. It'll be a night game, all that stuff.
Yep. So that's the way I would lean right now. I don't think anything I'd see this weekend would make me really change my mind on that. But so half of the poll went 2-2. The next highest is 3-1. About 30% of everybody picking that out there. 13% say 1-3 or 0-4, and then 8.3% go 4-0 for the Gators to finish out the season.
Yeah, like I say, I think, again, this is why we play the games. Like what's crazy is in all that retrospect is like the teams are comparable. That if you play a good game, anybody can get got, and that's kind of been the
we're in this. Yeah,
it's the theme of the season, man.
And we're in the stretch of the season of
where teams get got somehow.
Not only that, where it happened last year for Florida.
Exactly, we're right in that same
went in that 4-0 stretch at the end of the season. I'm not calling for it, guys, please. So before you go share the message that I'm saying Florida's going 4-0 because they did last year. That's not what I'm saying. But this is the point in the season where it happened last year.
Yep.
So, if you go out there and play well.
Yeah, like I say, we'll do the regular coach speak. We'll just take it 1 week at a time, baby. We'll go beat Kentucky, and then we'll worry about Ole Miss when we play Ole Miss.
For sure. So, all right, there we go. Recording right here. You got a good basketball game to watch. They're far.
Yeah, we need to get off the schneid, baby.
Yeah. That's true. But that'll do it. All right. Hey, Sponge, thanks, man, for hopping on a crazy week for us here. Thanks for adjusting the schedule. We'll talk a little bit of Florida, Kentucky, and there we go, Gator Nation.
Yep.
All right. That'll do it for this episode of Gators Breakdown for Sponge. I am David Waters. Guys and girls out there, thank you for joining us on this episode of Gators Breakdown.